Bill, how are you? Good evening. Welcome to K-Talk and Fringe Radio, my friend.
Hey, Pat. Always a pleasure and a privilege to be on with you. And again, I consider you a great friend and you're a great host. I love your show. I've been loving it for years. So anytime I have the opportunity to speak with you, it's always a great time, and I enjoy doing this with you.
Well, I appreciate it. And again, all the stuff that you do for me, archiving the shows, cleaning them up, built our YouTube channel and what have you. It takes a lot of work and dedication. I want to thank you. The guy we had, of course, we had the guys from Bronxville Paranormal on before you here. And, they talked about the criticality of being able to capture things. One thing I thought would have been really cool is when that Ouija board appeared out of nowhere. I mean, to have captured that on film would have been something to see, where you have a table with nothing and then you see something appear and then something physically appears. That would kind of be the find of the century.
Oh, yeah. And, Pat, I had the privilege to be with these guys during the last research investigation, and they mentioned it at Nuclear Lake. Now, a little bit of the history of Nuclear Lake, it was a plutonium factory, and I guess it existed from the 50s up to 72 when there was an explosion, and plutonium dust pretty much littered the whole entire area. So there was a massive cleanup after that. Thus, the name was given Nuclear Lake, that the locals pretty much gave it that name. But there's a lot of history involved with that lake as well. And I'll speak about the Skywatch later, but I just want to touch on the things that they were talking about earlier because, again, I was there with them. And initially, I had gone with Al about 3 weeks ago. And he said, Bill, you got to come with me. You got to check out Nuclear Lake. This place is known for all type of paranormal activity. And he was mentioning about there was a Bigfoot sighting there, Pat. It was in 2007 where these individuals were camping. And one of the gentlemen had 2 pit bulls, and his sister-in-law was in another tent. And they were right there on the west side portion of Nuclear Lake. And like they mentioned, right next to this, almost parallel, is the Appalachian Trail. So it seemed like this thing, I'll say Bigfoot because that's what they reported it as, came out of the woods. It was pitch black. They just heard the noise. Now, remember, there was no visible lights, no flashlights, and they were in the tent, and the dogs got completely spooked. And this creature, or whatever it was, approached the tents, and they heard it. They did not, now I don't think they physically seen it, but again, this was a report right there in Nuclear Lake. So Al said, why don't you come and check it out? So again, me being the curious person I am, not just in ufology, but I'm into all the paranormal itself. So I went there, and when we first got there, you have to walk up a trail, I'd say about 1.5 miles just to reach the lake from the main road. So we sit on this rock, a big rock, and we've got all kinds of gear on us, just to prepare and be cautious. But in front of us, there was like a tree knock, like something hit the tree. So Al says, Bill, did you hear that? I said, yeah, it was right in front of us. Then a stone was thrown behind us. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get unrattled here. I'm just going to be calm. It could be anything. Could be, tree branches falling in the woods. So we continue on. He shows me this Bigfoot sighting spot. We walk along the water's edge, and we see what looks like an imprint in the ground, like a footprint. And I took pictures of it. We took pictures, the whole deal. Then he took me to the Appalachian Trail, and he's so good at picking out the nuances, the little things that an investigator would look for. He's showing me the branches that are broken, I'd say maybe 7 or 8 feet high, but not just broken, but they look twisted, as if somebody twisted them.
Yeah.
And then we seen what looked like a lean-to made out of piles of wood, like somebody constructed that. Now, again, this is the Appalachian Trail, so maybe somebody put that there temporarily to construct an overnight place for shelter. Then we continue walking around the northern portion of the lake, and we see these structures of stone. I forget the name of them, but when you see those relics that the Indians use, it's like piles of rock that have a formation that looks like a person. And this thing was 30 feet high in a place that was obstructed by all types of debris. and the stones were huge. And I'm saying to myself, okay, who comes out 4 miles into the woods and would do this in the middle of nowhere? And you guys also mentioned about the rock formations and the structures. Well, in Nuclear Lake, there's rows and rows of these rocks. Now, maybe they were put there in colonial times or for dividing up certain sections of property, like property lines, whatever it may be. But these stones have been there for it looked like hundreds of years, and they're everywhere. So there was a lot of curious things that was going on in the lake. So we decided to go back with some of his other team members on Halloween night. And like they said, Pat, as soon as you get to the lake, when I mentioned when you reach, you get out of that path 1.5 miles, it seems like everything west of the lake is dead. There's no animal life, no birds. I noticed no sounds of insects, nothing. And the place was littered with food, acorns, stuff, like natural food sources that you would see deer or raccoon or squirrels. Pat, it was nothing. It was devoid of any life. That's what it seemed like to me. So, as they mentioned, we got to this section on the other side of the lake. Now, we walked about 6 miles into the lake area, and it was about 7 p.m. because I was constantly looking at my watch just to keep a chronological time of what we were doing at what time, and we ended up staying there till midnight. But at 7 o'clock, we hear that woot, and it was the most odd sound, Pat, I ever heard in my life. The next day, like they mentioned, I went through hours of trying to match up animals that are in the area, whether they're in distress, whatever it may be. I tried to match it up. I could find nothing. When I went to a Bigfoot site, that's when I heard exactly what we heard that night. And we heard it, I'd say, 6 times. And like they mentioned, it seemed to move very quickly from one spot to another. Now, there was dogs barking in the far distance, and I think that might have been a kennel or some type of area where there was a large congregation of dogs. As soon as you heard that wooting sound, whatever it was, I can't call it a howl because it was very constant in the same pitch. It didn't go up or down. It was just like a constant sound. Yeah. Short, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So as soon as that happened, the dogs stopped. They just stopped cold. And it seemed like this thing was coming closer to us. But it makes me, like Al said, it makes me wonder interdimensional or if they have some type of movement because it was so incredible how it went from one location to another. Then we're sitting there at night. And now, I don't know, Pat, if you've been out in the middle of the woods, even though you've got gear, you've got protection, I've got my night vision stuff with me. They've got their equipment. You still have that uncomfortable feeling that something's watching you
Sure.
or around you.
Well, and it's got to be even more so when it's moving. It would be one thing, exactly. I've gone out, I've gone out in the mountains a couple of times, in the forests a couple of times over the years, not as of recent. And every now and then you'll see a pair of eyes. You take a light and you flash it, and it's it's either a fox or a bird or something. But when there's something that's behind you, around you, and and it's not just you, it's a bunch of people that are confirming it, that something's moving around. That gives you the creeps.
Pat, there was one point, and it was about 8 o'clock. And now remember, it's pitch black. You're in the middle of the woods. There's no light. It was the stars were coming in and out that night. There was no moon, so it's pretty dark. And I heard something out of nowhere. It's like if it was coming toward me. And I was sitting in the chair. So I got up, and I went to turn, and Al grabbed me and says, Bill, stay still. Don't run. And I wasn't going to run. I just didn't want to have my back turned to whatever the heck was coming toward us. I want to see it. I want to be where I'm facing whatever's coming. So that, again, about 8:30, we're all sitting in the chairs and, pretty much next to each other in a parallel line, a little curved. As we're sitting there, we have 2 glow sticks on the floor. And in the back of us, this big rock lands right behind Brian. I'd say maybe 20 feet away from where he was sitting. And I was like, okay, what the heck? Just do that. It was the oddest thing I ever experienced. Now, I am very skeptical. I am not one to say Bigfoot exists. Until I see something with my own eyes, then I would say it's confirmation that something does exist. So again, I'm trying to remain grounded, reasonable, logical. Just take it easy.
Sure.
So now we decided to leave that area and go to a different area, and it was a clearing right on the Appalachian Trail. So I've got my camera out, and Brian brought a device where I could record what was on my camera onto this device, and it had a small screen. It's one of those devices you use in a car to record footage.
Yeah, like
one
a
of those
dash
little
cam.
consoles.
Dash cam.
Exactly, the dash cams. Pat, I was sitting down on the chair, and I'm standing up, going with the camera slowly through the trees. We seen two shadowy things move from right to left on the screen while I have my camera up in the trees. They move right after another, like woof, woof, like two quick movements. And I was like, what? And the unfortunate part was I had a micro SD card, and when I got home, nothing was on it. I was so upset. Another thing was when we heard those sounds, and I think Brian mentioned it earlier, it taught me a lesson that from now on, whenever I go on one of these investigations with these guys, always record the audio the whole time you're there, because you would never think about what's going to happen or what you got until after the fact, when you start thinking about all the experiences that you go through in that evening.
Right.
And they took pictures with this blue mist. I mean, orbs. Now, orbs could be a simple, to me, a camera anomaly. The cameras have a tendency to do that when they flash. Orbs can come up. But the mist, it was perfectly clear. There was no fog. There was none of that. So, yeah, this was a very, really interesting night. And as soon as we left Nuclear Lake, as we're heading back down that trail to go to the main road, what do we see? Loads of deer and other animals. It seemed like they knew not to go into that area near Nuclear Lake. And also, maybe that even though they did the cleanup, maybe the animals have that sense that area still has pollutants. It's, with the plutonium that's sprayed. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was just one of those experiences. And we're going to go back. We're going back in the spring when the weather gets better, because right now it's just too cold to be out there in the middle of the woods. So, yeah,
sure.
That's pretty much of a wrap-up. And another thing, 2 miles away, there's a lake called Whaley Lake. Now, Whaley Lake is known, back in the mid-'80s, there was a UFO, a major UFO report there, where two guys were on a rowboat, and they were actually skywatching. And they seen a light coming down the railroad tracks, this big light. They thought it was a train. Or they thought it was a spotlight. Maybe the locals, because there's a lot of prisons in the area, maybe they were looking for escaped convicts. They were coming up with all these different ideas what this could be. I was saying, there were not nearby, 2 miles away, Whaley Lake.
Right.
Back in the 80s, there was a sighting there, and two guys.
About the railroad, the light coming down the railroad track.
Yeah, they suffered from missing time. They woke up the next day on the beach, and their boat was right there next to them. So that was one of the major cases. So this area does have its lore of paranormal activity, so to speak. So, yeah, that I found it really interesting. And like I said, Pat, these guys, they really know what they're doing. They take it very seriously. They're more skeptical. They try to remain grounded. And Al seems to he draws things. I don't know what it is about Al, but he seems to have that sense where things are attracted to him. And, it's just a great blend with these guys. So I definitely look forward to going with them on some future investigations for sure.
Well, and again, like you said, sounds like a place that maybe science and mankind did some bad things to, with dumping things there, and now people paying the price. But one of the things we hit on with the first 2 hours with Al and the guy was about capturing stuff. So if we could transfer to that a little bit, we kind of you told me it's been a couple of years now. You started doing your sky watching thing, and that is just really blossomed for you.
Yes.
As far as we've had different guests like Wilbur Allen on, people that have been doing that for years. You've been doing it, and now, of course, getting more and more involved with it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do in your Skywatch stuff?
Well, we started this. It was Eric and I, and he's American Road Warrior on YouTube, and I'm Bill NY, New York, Bill NY Skywatcher. We started this, I'd say, a little less than 2 years ago, and we started with a simple setup. It's with the SCB 2000s. It's a Samsung camera. Mm-hmm. It's usually used for security means. And we started with one camera. We bought a 5 to 100 millimeter lens for it. And it does have color, and it does have the black and white capability. But we removed the IR filter out of the camera because it seemed to be for better light reduction for nighttime viewing. So it did help in that aspect of viewing the stars. So we continued to do this. You know, we went through the in and outs of learning the technical aspect of getting it all connected to the computer. We eventually got a DVR security recorder where we could record all the footage and then go through the editing process the next day, because, you know, it's not easy to sit there and watch for 10 to 12 hours, you know, during a night and observe these things. So that gave you the luxury of going the next day and checking the footage out and seeing if you picked up anything interesting. So I'd say a few months later, we went up to 4 cameras. You know, we started to increase in capacity of what we had to record. Then I'd say about 8 months ago, we decided to go with the live streaming on YouTube. And to be honest, that's actually picked up, and we've got a lot of followers now and a lot of interest. We have a lot of our friends come on with us on Skype, and we have a discussion on a wide range of topics. You know, it's almost like a coffee table type setting where we all just sit around and talk about all the latest things going on in the paranormal field and conspiracy and the news, etc. But it's very enjoyable because the listenership, the people that are watching, the feedback that I'm getting is, yeah, it's great to watch the Skywatch, you know, itself. But, you know, to be honest, Pat, it can be boring because you're just seeing, you know, the stars. Well, this adds that extra element which really supports the whole thing as far as interest. And like I said, it's fun to be on with, you know, a lot of my friends. You know, I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of them. And now we have night vision. Eric made his own thing. He got a military grade Gen 2 night vision scope, and he put it onto a camcorder, and he records all the footage directly on there. I bought the iGen 2020 night vision camera, and that's what I use. And Lucky, as you've had him on in the past, he uses that as well. And we're also getting other people involved in adding their cameras to a website that I designed with the help of a friend. And we're growing. You know, we're expanding, and we're trying to get as many people as we can onto that one site so people could see the various cameras from, you know, different locations, whether it's here in the United States or overseas, whatever it may be. So just so we can get as much coverage as possible. So that's also, you know, got a lot of interest. And I'm also interested in seeing what other people are doing on YouTube because, Pat, you have to check out UFO. His name is UFO Lou. Okay. About a week ago, he got on his night vision an object that is triangular. It comes up. It's first you don't see it. It's not visible. Slowly it fades into view, and then it's there, and then slowly it fades out. It's one of those footage, you know, clips that I find very impressive. Because with today, with all the hoaxing and the photoshopping, that's what you want. You want to find something that's credible, that's real. That's why the live streaming is really good, Pat, because people are seeing it in real time. Well, there's a lag because of YouTube. You know, there's a broad bandwidth issue with that, but pretty much they're seeing it live. So what they see is what we're getting. So we all are seeing that at the same time. We're all actually going to see something, you know, all together for the first time. And that experience in itself is exciting because, you know, people aren't still comfortable with what they're seeing. Right away I see in the YouTube chat, UFO. Well, Eric and I, you know, we've been doing this now for 2 years. We know what we're seeing on the screen, whether it's a satellite, a man-made object or a meteor, even bugs, whatever it may be. So, you know, we have to make sure that we keep them, you know, we educate them as far as telling them what we're seeing at any given time, so they can learn in the process of watching at the same time that we're observing as we are. And they also become interested themselves. That's another thing that this is great, because now they want to get involved in doing this themselves. And that's what I really think that there should be an emphasis on, Pat, is that more people, we pay so much attention to other people, with our cameras, whatever it may be. Well, maybe we need to emphasize more about what's going on above us, because I think there's a lot of things that are going on. And I'm not saying it's just to do with ufology, Pat. It's also on a military platform with space programs, drones, whatever it may be, but it seems to be on the increase.
Well, and as I mentioned on the program a couple weeks ago, I had my own sighting. I actually called you that night and talked to Eric and a few other people that night. I mean, I wish, and I need to get my act together and get it done, because I've actually bought some equipment, like with your first generation stuff. That's what I picked up. And, here I was sitting outside on a night, in the fall when it should have been really cold, and just kind of, watching the airplanes land and looking up, and then seeing what turned out to be 7 moving objects that all converged, that I know were not drones. I know they were not military aircraft. I don't know what they were, but again, something very unique. I wish I would have captured that, because again, like the old adage, one picture is worth 1,000 words. But yeah, I mean, if people, we always look straight ahead. We don't look up. And what you guys have discovered, and again, like Wilbur Allen, we've had him on the show a couple times, actually with you and Eric, how he shoots hundreds of thousands of frames of photos. People say, well, there's nothing up there. Well, there is. You just got to take the time to capture it. And like you said, it's very tedious to go through frame by frame or even hour by hour of all that video.
Well, I actually spoke with Wilbur Allen, I'd say about an hour ago. And he is working on a project now with Jose Escamilla, and it's almost completed. And he's really busy right now. He's going to Alaska soon. I don't want to reveal too much what Wilbur's doing right now. But he did tell me to tell you a message that he's planning on coming out with you sometime in January when he's able to and free. So that'll be great to have the opportunity to speak to Wilbur about what he's doing. Pat, he's always on the move. He's, like you said, this guy has thousands and thousands of pictures. And he uses high-end equipment, so you're going to get quality. Whatever he gets, that's what you're getting. You're getting high-end quality footage.
Yeah. And,
again, it's pricey. This stuff, it's not for everyone. I'm doing it slowly. We all have our economic issues. But, it's a slow progression, but that's how you build. And you become excited. Like Eric and I, when I was with Al at Nuclear Lake, he had this parabolic mic. So I definitely want to get a parabolic mic to point in the same direction with my camera, so this way I could pick up any of the sounds that are being emanated from any object particularly. We also just recently got motorized mounts for the cameras, so I could sit inside and play with a joystick and move the camera around wherever I want in the sky, and that makes it so much easier instead of going outside. Especially during, meteor showers, which we have a big one coming up, the Geminids, which is December 13th and 14th, and that's considered to be one of the larger meteor showers of the year.
Right. Well, we actually have the Leonids last night and tonight as well too.
Wow. You know what? The weather here is so bad, but that's surprising that I actually missed that. But yeah, that's the big one, and it's so much easier to stay on the constellation, Pat, from inside, where I don't have to go in and out and move the camera every so often just to stay where the radiant point is, where the meteors are coming out of. Another thing too is I also, for those type of events, I get people to come on, like Erica Lukes and some of these other known people, colleagues I'll call them, to come on and hang out, and they could talk about what's going on in their neck of the woods. Erica Lukes is the state director for MUFON in Utah, where you're at. And like I said, we like bringing in people, have a discussion. Another thing that's great, Pat, in the work that I'm currently doing, is that I meet a lot of people. And if I ever were to have some really incredible footage where I say, okay, this is it. This is the smoking gun, or something close to that, or something that I just don't have an answer to myself. I now have that outlet to submit it to certain individuals, and pretty much I can have it checked in a rather quick manner. That's not to say that I still don't do reports with MUFON to make it official, but you know how it is. We know certain individuals where if we did capture something, we can get it to the right sources pretty quickly, so to speak.
Right, right.
So that helps in this. But yeah, I encourage, people to look more into the skies, and even if it's just as far as an educational process, right. With the family, and you're going out there and you're stargazing, etc. You don't need rather expensive equipment to do that. You just got to be in the proper location and in the right setting, and just watch the skies and enjoy. That's my philosophy.
Well, and there's also if people are interested, there's also you can go right online and get you can put your location in, get star tracking maps for as far as constellations and stuff. There's been a beautiful I don't know if it's the constellation of Leo, I'm not quite sure, but there's been a beautiful constellation for the past month or so up in our southeastern sky here. And again, not only looking for anomalies or UFOs or what have you, just take the kids out and start watching. You can there's software out there that lets you know when the ISS is going to be overhead.
Exactly.
A lot of stuff.
Well, I use SatFlare and the satflare.com, and why that's so good is it tells me exactly where all the satellites are at a given point. So if I do see something, I can match it up to that, and it also it tracks the ISS and other objects. But that's really a great site that I use, SatFlare. But yeah, did you see? Now I don't know. It was in the news recently, that photo that astronaut Scott Kelly took from the ISS, and he posted it. I think it was on Twitter.
No.
It shows an object, and I don't know if he knew, because it's a picture of the Earth. It's lit up. It's nighttime. You can see the light, but there's an object in the upper right-hand corner. And there's a lot of speculation and talk right now on the net. It's a pretty hot item that if this was some type of UFO. So to me, it seems like slowly, we're starting to get some type of disclosure in, like I said, indirectly, whatever it may be. Recently we had the report but we pretty much all knew this, that the water that they discovered on Mars, that anomaly of light being blocked out by the structure,
right,
light years away. You know what I mean? You start to see these things coming out in dribbles, leaking out, and you start to say to yourself, is it part of the preparation to get the public more aware and be prepared? I don't know, but it's really interesting to see all this stuff develop as it's coming out, and it seems like every week it's something new that comes out.
Yeah. Well, and then there was the big thing on Friday the 13th here, just a week or so ago, with the space debris that was supposedly splashing down off the coast of Sri Lanka. I didn't hear any more about it, but it was kind of interesting. Had people at least keeping their eyes in the skies.
Uh-huh. And in L.A., they had that submarine launch of a Trident, and they said it was some type of failure. But many people were reporting this. They were calling in the law enforcement, local authorities, right. And the object was odd looking, but you can tell. And by a friend of mine who lives in Florida, and he takes photos near the Cape all the time, and there's still stuff that goes up. We still launch rockets, and you can tell what the rocket plume looks like when it's going up in the air. It gives off that certain teardrop effect, I'll call it. You know what I mean? So that's, to me, a person that has, I would say, a knowledgeable eye of what they're looking at. But for the person that has no idea what's going on, they have no they don't have no prior information about seeing this kind of stuff, and they see that, you definitely are taken aback, and you wonder. But then again, Pat, the response, it's not like what they make it out to be with this fear mongering and like it's going to be chaos and panic. That's what they would like us to react, or the public to react that way. But I honestly think that people would accept it. I think people are more acceptable to the possibilities now than ever before.
Well, because, yeah, exactly. I just, and like you said, there's so many people that are trying to push the disclosure thing, which is fine. But I think, honestly, and I think you hit it on the head, people are seeing things, people are being much more open-minded than they ever were before. And, I don't think you need to have any government officials step outside the line and say, hey, we saw this or I don't think there's a need for that anymore. People have opened their eyes up, and again, there's enough stuff being captured out there that people are seeing it firsthand.
Pat, if you speak to just your ordinary person on the street or a neighbor or whatever it may be, and I've done this many times because I've got my gear, I got my Bill NY Skywatcher shirt and my hat. So they see the UFO on my shirt, they see the telescope, the whole deal. They ask me, what is this all about? And then I tell them. And you know what? The majority of the responses I get, well, you won't believe it. I've seen such and such. And it's amazing how people, when they have that, I don't want to call it a comfortability, or as far as being where they are able to speak with someone else and not be ridiculed or embarrassed, whatever it may be, or called crazy. A lot of people are experiencing these things, whether it's recent or in their past life, like lives, early childhood, whatever it may be. But it seems more common than not that people are having some type of experience, and I'm talking. It could be in the whole platform, wide range of paranormal, whether it's spiritual, ghosts, orbs, whatever it may be. It's across the line. So I think that more and more people are accepting to the possibilities and opening their minds that things may be going on that we just don't have any real rational explanation to.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. Well, like I said, as Al and the guys, as Paul and Al and Brian were talking about again, they're kind of in the thick of all this paranormal investigating, but it's crossed a lot of different things. They, like you say, they do a little bit of, you guys, they're looking into the ufology aspect of it. They're looking into the cryptozoology aspect of things. A lot of crazy things are, well, I shouldn't say crazy. They're crazy because we don't understand them. Anything we don't understand, I think we put a name to. But again, so many things are happening. People are seeing so many different things and experiencing different things. And like you said, people are more, even it's kind of like people will start talking about some of these subjects and say, well, I don't believe in that. But once they feel they're around a comfortable group and nobody will judge them for it, a lot of people come out with a story or something that happened.
Exactly. And again, to have the access to see these things, and you can remain anonymous. Like if you have a certain interest in whatever on YouTube and you're watching, you don't have to make yourself known. You're just there and as an observer. It's just to turn that switch and have people, instead of having that narrow vision, but opening up to the possibilities, just allowing themselves to explore all the areas of whatever it may be. Like me, I need answers for everything. I question everything. You know me in my past. I'm known as the questions person, and I'm still doing that to a certain capacity now. But that's what you want. You want to ask questions about everything, and this is just not with ufology. It's in all walks of life. Whether it's our government, whatever it may be. But you know what I mean. It's
right.
It's something that we should be doing more, and I think that's the essence of everything. Is just I've had experiences. I want the answers. Now, I may not ever get the answers that I'm looking for, but that's not going to deter me from trying to find and seek those answers.
Right.
And by engaging, like listening to your show and listening to the wide range of guests you have on, and listening to what they have to say and their backgrounds. It's just creating that wealth of information. And yes, there are times where you agree or disagree, but that's again pretty much in the listeners. It's all up to the listeners' vantage point, whether they want to believe or not.
Right.
But just having the opportunity to do so, and you are doing it, is progress to me.
Right. No, and then thank you for, I appreciate, like I said, I love doing the show. As you know, a lot of these things are thankless. You do it because you feel you're driven to do it. And again, like with what you're doing, you're not making any money off it. You guys are buying your own equipment, and you're taking your own time. But if it educates one person or gets one person to open their eyes or, again, get people thinking about things, it's okay.
Yep. And the good thing is, just like similar to your show where you get callers on when we're doing the Skywatch, we take calls, on Skype. If somebody has a story, they can call in. We'll discuss it, as long as they keep it, polite and
sure.
they're mindful about what they're saying. But yeah, it's always great to hear people speak about their encounters or experiences, and that's another thing too, Pat. It kind of gets me a little upset and frustrated when I hear so much of these negative alien betrayals or stories or encounters. I honestly am not one that believes so much in that. Now, there's a balance, of course, in nature. There's the good and the bad. We know that. But I think that if they're here, and we really haven't, I believe they've been here for thousands of years. That's just my own personal opinion. And they've been observing us. Who knows if they had a part in our makeup, whatever it may be. But if they were here, why, if they haven't done anything aggressive to this point, why haven't they? And I think they're here to watch our progress as we develop from a Type 0 civilization to a Type 1 civilization, where now we are a spacefaring species that is going outward. And I have to be honest, considering the state of humanity as it is today, with all the violence involved, you have to question how an extraterrestrial civilization would view us as a hostile civilization going outward. I don't know if I would want us to be going to a planet where there's other extraterrestrials and visiting there. Can you imagine, what we may be capable of doing in such a scenario?
Yeah, no, I do. I agree.
So they could be here simply to maybe guide us, maybe to prevent us from getting to that point, or just, like I said, maybe observing to see what we'll do when we reach the capacity and the capability to travel deep into space. I honestly think that they're watching the evolutionary process of how we develop. I mean, it would make sense if that was the case. Now, I don't know about, I am not going to be a hypocrite and say, when I hear these stories of abductions or people claiming to be hybrids, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say I'm not going to listen to them and think their story is so outlandish, because at the same time, when I explain to them what I've been through, they could have those same kind of feelings toward me. It goes two ways. You have to be open to all the possibilities. You cannot say what a person is or is not going through or has gone through. So there's also a respect line there as well.
Exactly. We got a little bit of time left. One of the listeners sent in and said, if you could talk a little bit about the Hudson Valley UFO sightings, and of course that's something that Al and the group have talked about. A lot of sightings there, a lot of stuff, a lot of activity.
Well, I could tell you, and I got to be careful how I say this because I spoke with a certain individual about a month ago. There was a sighting here in the Hudson Valley near a pine bush. And again, I got to, watch what I say because I don't think it's been formally discussed. But let's just say that their team went to investigate it, and the head of MUFON for New York State was there. And in the back of someone's house, they found a field that was indented, and they found twice the radiation levels than normal, and an object was seen that I think it was that night or the night previous, hovering above that area. So yes, there's been recently a big investigation here near Pine Bush, and also Pat, quickly, I spoke with a local lieutenant, a police lieutenant from my area, and he told me, I wish he would go on the record, but he won't. He told me that back in the day when it was big here in the 80s and the 90s, when they had all these sightings up here in Hudson Valley, he told me many of the police officers that are now retired seen UFOs. He said they seen them go into the Hudson River and come out the Hudson River. He said they seen them while they were on the bridge going from one part of the area to the other part of the area. So this is, when I hear this from a lieutenant telling me this, that puts a lot of credibility about what might have happened up here. And for my own participation in skywatching, if you go to my page and you look for a longer look at this UFO, and I showed you this video, that thing that curves from the top to the bottom, curves back up, stops, has 3 lights on it that would pretty much form a triangle, and then it zooms off into space like warp speed.
Right.
Now, there's only 2 possibilities here, Pat. Either that's a drone or it's not.
Yeah.
That's because it can't be man-made. It's not going to stop and go 0 to warp speed, with humans in it. They couldn't withstand that kind of G-force. So, yeah, things are going on, and that's why I'm going to continue to do what I do, continue doing the sky watches as much as I possibly can. And now with the holidays going on, that's pretty tough because, busy times. But, yeah, I'm going to continue, and Eric and I and Lucky are going to continue to grow in our equipment and try to make it better. And we'll see where this goes. But, yeah, we're not going to stop. It's our passion. We love it, and we're looking for the answers.
Well, I know Carol got all over me the other day. She she came out in the workshop and she said, "What's the camera doing there? What are you going to do with that?" And I kind of told her, I told her about the sighting we had and that I had the one night, and she really was like, we need to do it. We just need to get it up. So tomorrow, if the weather prevails, okay. We'll see. Maybe we'll at least get the camera up and get the cabling run in the house, and then we could take it from there. And again, it may not be fancy, but something that we can just point upward and let it run.
My advice to you is put it in a location that you could easily reach it, because I'm sure you're planning to putting it in some type of encasement.
Yes.
In a case, so you could wipe it down if it rains, the outer lens, plexiglass, whatever you're going to use, and also get a security DVR system where you could record. This way, at nighttime, you don't even have to be watching. You just put the camera on, put the DVR on, and let it record. Then at your leisure time, you can go back and go over the footage, because you'll never know. If you're not looking, you're never going to find anything.
Right,
so,
right.
You got to put it up there and just set it up and let it roll. And a lot of these DVR systems, they come with 500 gigabyte hard drives, so that's plenty of space that could last you weeks upon weeks. So, yeah, I would advise you just to set it up, a simple thing, and hook it up to a security DVR, and you can get them on eBay for really a decent price. And just shoot for the stars. That's my advice. And I know Erica, she's planning on getting a camera very soon herself, because I spoke with her today. And she's definitely looking to get the night vision herself. So maybe we can, get all together and do a skywatch.
Oh, we do. And we need to, we do. We need to interface them together without a doubt, because, again, there's with the miracle of the internet, there's no reason to not be able to join together. Bill, I want to thank you for coming on. What's the weather like in New York?
Right now, it's about 30 degrees and cloudy, and it's going down to the 20s.
Oh, wow. Are you getting a snowstorm that's coming through Chicago? And
No. It's still a bit too warm here in the daytime, but I'm expecting the brunt of winter to be coming within a few weeks. I just wanted to hold out because I have a lot of family coming over for the holidays, so hopefully it'll hold till that passes. But, Pat, again, thank you so much for having me on, and I want to say hello and thank you to all the listeners, and hope that you all develop interest in the sky and Skywatch. And you can find us at Eric's is American Road Warrior, all one word. Lucky is Lucky 43113. And I am Bill NY Skywatcher. And the website for where you can see all the cameras is UFOnightvision.info. So that's the site that you can see all three cameras. And there's also a chat room that I created for that room as well. And there's the Skype button there, too, where you can call us during a show.
And you can
Again, thank you so much, Pat. I love listening to your show and always enjoy all the guests that you have on and how you are as a host. And keep up the great work, and we'll talk soon.
All right, my friend, take care. Thank you so much, Bill. Have a great I'll talk to you before the holidays, but have a great holiday and be safe.
You too. And tell Carol I said hello.
I sure will. All right, good night, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Bill Forte.